So we usually start these at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and we will give it a few minutes for everyone to join. I am live from New York City tonight, so I thought it was appropriate that we're going to talk about personal development, and I'm actually in New York City for personal development. I'm going to a training on Monday and Tuesday on the power of communication and improving my communication skills. I've never done a formal communications class, so I'm pretty excited for that. So that's why I'm in New York City, and that's why I picked tonight's topic on personal development, because I'm going to be doing personal development here myself, so I thought it would work well. We are going to be back to our regularly scheduled programming with another guest next week. So we'll have another career story next week with a guest, but this week we're going to talk about personal development. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And for those that are not able to watch this live, we will be streaming. There will be a replay of this. Here myself, so I thought it would work well. We are going to be there will be a replay of this, which we will put up on here on LinkedIn and on YouTube as well. But we'll go ahead and get started. So the topic of personal development is one that I think is we focus on a lot of personal development for others, but not for ourselves. And to me, I think that's something that we need to do more of, is we need to focus on the personal development of ourselves. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Why I think it's important to focus on personal development, how you figure out what you should even focus on, and then where you can go to for actual resources for personal development. And depending on where you are in your career, if you're in school, if you're at a corporation, no matter where you are, there are resources for personal development, which we'll get into today. So why don't we go ahead and jump right into a little bit about why I think this topic of personal development is so important. And what is interesting to me is, how little people focus on. So let's start with this. So according to the World Economic Forum, which for those of you that don't know, they're an organization that looks at really like global trends, the global economy. They put out this list. It was actually a couple of years ago. Really important things that you need to thrive in 2020. So 2020 is less than a month away. I thought it'd be interesting to look at this list, right? So this is from the World Economic Forum. And what I think is interesting here is that they give us 10 things. And if you look at this list compared to their list 5 years ago, it's definitely shifted. And again, that's because work is changing, right? How we work is changing, where we work is changing, and all different things like that. But let's run through this list, and I'll highlight a couple things that I think really stand out to me. So complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence, judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. What I think is interesting when you read this list is these are all things that artificial intelligence and what we will have, which will be robots, are not good at. So these are things that are inherently really important for humans, and things that are humans that humans are good at. So we'll use creativity as an example. No matter what article you read about robots and artificial intelligence and machine learning and everything about the future of tech, the one thing that most people agree on is it's not creative. So the whole you can teach like a robotic process automation, or you can teach artificial intelligence to do structured things very well, right? Or do repetitive things very well. The same thing over and over and over again. At this point, you cannot teach artificial intelligence how to be creative. So creativity is something that the World Economic Forum thinks you will need to thrive in 2020. I think the other one that I like here that I think is probably not talked about as much as it should be is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is, I think it's one of those, what does it mean? How do I know I have it? How do I know if I can get it? I think depending on who you talk to, people have different meanings for it. But I think why they have it in this list is because, again, how you walk into a room, read a room, understand what someone's trying to tell you, maybe the undercurrent or the tone they're using. Maybe they can't say something, but you're kind of getting a sense that they want to say something. So, how are you able to connect with people and understand maybe certain situations that others would have trouble understanding, and robots and artificial intelligence would definitely have a hard time understanding. The other one I'll highlight on here, and then we'll keep going, is people management. So many people are individual contributors. They want to become people managers, and that's a very common topic of personal development, is how do I get the skills I need to be a people manager? Well, I think the interesting thing is in today's economy more than ever, we have baby boomers, we have Gen X, we have millennials, and we have Gen Z now. So we have, really 4 different generations working in the workplace today. And if you want to be a people manager and have great people management skills, you're going to have to deal with a wide variety of demographics, of ages, of backgrounds, and the way people grew up working and the way people have grown up living. So just these 10, again, according to the World Economic Forum, critical to you thriving in 2020. So with that in mind, some of these will apply to you and some of these will not apply to you. I'm not saying they will all apply to you, but I think it's a great list. And I think me personally, I can definitely see why I would need, some of these on this list in my role and in other roles that I've been in the past. So I wanted to start with this list to kind of just share, what are some experts think we need to focus on in 2020? From there, what I want to talk about is another interesting thing, and I mentioned this earlier, is the way we live is changing and the way we work is changing. And I think that ties together directly with the skills that we think we're going to need in 2020. So I put this together. This is based off a lot of different research I did on the internet through a variety of sources. So there's not one place that I received all this, but I wanted to highlight on the top how we live is changing, I think, pretty dramatically, and the way we work is changing. So why don't we just dive a little bit deeper here? So the way we live is changing. So what do I mean by that? Everyone talks about this. We have 24/7 connectivity. I thought this was an interesting fact. Here in the U.S., 95% of Americans own a cell phone. So that has absolutely changed how we, work and live every single day and interact with people, because now we're constantly connected. I've often laughed. I remember in high school with dial-up internet. So I remember the first time my parents got AOL, and you'd hear that fun little modem noise, and my father just used it to log on, get his email, and log back off. And then I remember we got unlimited dial-up internet, 56K internet, which was like blazing fast at the time. And we got Instant Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger, which is a way to communicate. I still, to this day, believe Instant Messenger was the first social network. So, how we communicated, even just getting unlimited dial-up internet, changed dramatically. And now we've got 24/7 connectivity with these little things, with these cell phones. 5G is coming. It's just amazing to me how that's changed everything. So the second one here, migration to cities. And I think a lot of people have seen this. So cities, for a good amount of time in the past, a lot of people were fleeing cities, they're moving to suburbs, but now we've seen a migration back to the cities. Whether that continues remains to be seen, but what we have seen is the clustering of talent in a few superstar cities around the world, which is absolutely changing the way we're living, right? Because these cities are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're seeing as you see, at least according to the stat I found, 3 million people are moving to cities each week. Work-life integration. So I didn't put work-life balance simply because I think balance is kind of like the word of maybe the phrase of the past. I think a lot more people are calling it work-life integration now, especially with the younger generations. It's not, I go in at 8 in the morning, I leave at 5 p.m. every day. I don't punch the clock to get in. I don't get a 30-minute lunch. I don't punch the clock to get out. It's, I'm going to work when I want to work. And as long as I get my work done, right? The whole idea of results-oriented work, guess what? Your manager and your team are going to be happy with you. So that could mean one day you work 10 hours, one day you work 6 hours, right? Or 4 hours. That could mean you go to work, then you go work out for a little bit in the middle of the day. Maybe you leave, you go pick up your kid from the bus stop, and then you log back on at 8 o'clock and do more work after everyone goes to bed, right? So this whole idea of with technology, back to the 24/7 connectivity, we can work differently now. So work-life integration is very different. you are not forced to be in the office like you used to. So that's a big one. And then the last thing I'll highlight with the way we live is changing is the sharing economy. So the stat I found, 44.8 million adults used the sharing economy in 2016. People ask, what is the sharing economy? An example would be Uber, right? You're sharing a car. It's probably the most common example that people can come up with. But you're seeing this more and more. And what I think it's doing, right, is people are buying less houses. They're leasing more apartments. They're not buying as many cars, right? So the fact that you don't necessarily need to buy things to actually take advantage of them anymore is a very interesting concept now that you have this whole idea of sharing economy and being able to use things when you need them. So I think that's changing the way we live. And then the way we work is also changing. So I know that people are going to probably get scared by this first stat here, but that 1/3 of jobs will be replaced by 2025 because of artificial intelligence, robots, and automation. Yeah, there's a lot of articles out there. Some say this is going to cause more jobs. Some say it's going to create less jobs. I think no matter what happens, you have to be prepared for it, right? And that list of 10 things that the World Economic Forum said to highlight and focus on helps you hopefully not be one of those positions that gets replaced by 2025 because of technology. So we've seen this for some time where technology is making us more efficient. You use an ATM as an example. You used to go to a bank. You'd walk in the bank and say, I need money. And a teller, a human, would give you money out of your account and you'd leave. The ATM came, dramatically changed how we banked, right? So we didn't have to go in anymore and talk to someone. We could just go to a machine that could be literally anywhere, and not even in a bank. It could be a freestanding ATM and get the cash you needed. Think about how that continued to evolve with technology, with the idea of snapping a picture of a check and uploading it from your phone, rather than again even going to the ATM to deposit the check. So this has always been happening. It's been happening all the way since like the Industrial Revolution, where we went from farming to manufacturing. It's just continuing, and I think again because of the internet and social media, we're hearing more about it. So more to come there. So again, other ways that work is changing. Co-working. So 1 million plus people work in co-working spaces. You do not need to work out of an office. You can work out of a co-working space instead of an office that your actual company has. So this, along with the working from home, the next bullet point with 4 million plus people telecommute in the US, that is absolutely changing the way that we work. So the idea of this 24/7 connectivity and being able to work from home or work from a co-working space, do you need to go into the office anymore? Some jobs you absolutely do. If you're a doctor or a nurse, you probably need to be in the hospital seeing your patients, as an example. If you're an HR professional like me, there's days that I need to be in the office for face-to-face meetings. There's other days where I don't necessarily need to be in the office because I have no face-to-face meetings. And every single person I'm talking to is just like this through a webcam and doing audio either through a phone or through the computer. So that is absolutely changing how we work. Those two things, co-working, the working from home, as well as the gig economy, we'll throw that in there as well. Some statistic I found says 34% of the US workforce. Again, that could mean you drive an Uber or you drive a Lyft. That could mean you freelance. So you go on Upwork and find jobs and do it that way. There's so many ways to be a part of the gig economy. But the whole idea of you don't have to work for one company anymore and you could just be an independent contractor and just do different jobs that you really want is completely changing the way that we're working. So a lot of disruption right now in the way we're living and the way we're changing, which is why I think focusing on personal development for yourself is so critical at this point in time. So I made a comment back earlier about the Industrial Revolution. Let me actually go back to that because I found that, again, this is from the World Economic Forum and a company called Centroio. This is a really cool kind of description of the 4 industrial revolutions we're going through, right? So the first one, history pegs it as 1765. This was the first one. Again, we have steam, we have water, mechanical production equipment. We are moving off of the farm, and we are moving into the Industrial Revolution. A dramatic time for the U.S. and others around the world. Second Industrial Revolution around the 1870s. division of labor, electricity, mass production. The most recent one, other than the one that's going on today, would be in the late 60s, early 70s, up until just recently. Third industrial revolution, electronics, IT, automated production, the internet completely changed, everything that we do on a daily basis, including the ability for me to, live stream something like this to all of you, literally anywhere in the world, from my hotel room. And then today, what experts are calling the fourth industrial revolution is the cyber physical systems and industry 4.0. So this is, again, everything we just talked about is what this whole fourth industrial revolution looks like. It's artificial intelligence, it's machine learning, it's robots, it's cobots, it's robotic process automation. It's, we talked about people skills earlier. You might have to have skills where you're working with humans, next to you. You're working with humans in another state, humans in another country. You might be working with a robot like, robotic process automation type robot, or an actual physical robot. If you work in a manufacturing facility, if you're making cars, as an example, a lot of workers actually interface with robots in some of those factories. So this is what I'm talking about. We are in the fourth industrial revolution, and just like the first three that came before it, it's going to completely change, how we work, how we live, and the future of work. So again, that's why I think the topic of personal development is so important. So now that we kind of teed up why I think the topic of personal development is so important, let's dive into the actual, what do I actually focus on, and how do I know what to focus on around personal development for myself? So I mentioned earlier, a lot of times, what people will do is they will actually focus on others and not themselves. Especially you see that a lot with managers of teams, is they're focusing on themselves, their teams, and not themselves quite a bit. So what I want to share with you today is, how do you know what to focus on? Let's start with that. So we'll go here. So I broke it down in really three ways: feedback from others, feedback from an assessment, and your personal interests. So let me walk through each of those and explain what I mean by that. Feedback from others. So how do you know what to focus on from a personal development perspective so you can better yourself? You could be getting feedback from your family. You could be getting feedback from your friends. So we'll start on the personal development on your personal life, not your work life, right? So your family and friends are probably your best gauge to understand what you need to work on, to be perfectly honest with you. So that could be your spouse saying, hey, I've noticed you've been really stressed lately. What's going on? And them having a conversation with you to figure out what is it that is maybe upsetting you or causing you stress, that you need to focus on from a personal development perspective. At work, it could be your manager, it could be your coworkers. And I think the idea here is you got to be open-minded and you got to listen to these people, right? So I always tell people, I've said this for years, people do not wake up in the morning and want to go to work and do poorly. That is usually not how it works. Like, people usually take a lot of pride in their work. So if something's not going well, there's probably a reason why. So if you've noticed that your friend, maybe your friend or your peer or your coworker, something's not going well, maybe you need to check in with them and say, hey, what's going on? Can I help you? Do you need something, right? So I think that's a really good way to figure out, is listen to others, right? Listen to your manager, listen to your coworkers, and see what do you need to work on, right? So those are good places. The other one I would check out is, if you're in school, it would be your professor. So or even your classmates. So your professor is one of those things that they're not with you that long. Right? They might only be with you for like one semester's class, but they have a lot of interaction with you, and they're gonna really be able to, they've seen tons of students come through. They're gonna be able to help you and figure out like what's going on, right? So I think your professor is an absolutely great person to get feedback from. Again, as well as your other students that you're with, also a great place to get feedback. And the last thing I'll highlight here would be if you have a mentor. I think a mentor would be an interesting place to get feedback from, in the sense that if this is someone that you trust, that you're working with on a variety of topics, they should be able to give you feedback. So these are all different places where you can get feedback from others to help you figure out what you need to work on personally. So hopefully that gives you some idea of what I mean by feedback from others. The middle one I have here, feedback from an assessment. So what do I mean by that? So there are a variety of assessments, and I highlighted a couple here. These are just a few examples. There are tons of different assessments out there. Clifton Strengths is actually my favorite. So it's cliftonstrengths.com. You can take this and find out what are your strengths, right? Or you can take Personalysis and figure out, what are your strengths that way. MBTI, a 360. These assessments are, grounded in research, and they help you determine what is going on, right? So what are you good at? What is an area of opportunity? The 360 is actually kind of a combination of the assessment and feedback from others, because you actually get feedback from others in the assessment. So I think that's an interesting one. But again, this feedback from an assessment perspective, it's not, and again, when I talk about feedback, I'm not only talking about opportunities to improve, I'm also talking about things you're doing well, right? So with Clifton Strengths as an example, that's going to give you what are your top 5 strengths that you could then again focus even more on from a personal development perspective. So feedback from an assessment is a great way to get feedback. And it looks like we got a comment here. We want to choose wisely who we ask for feedback from, as many people only tell us what we want to hear. That is a fantastic point. When you're getting feedback from others, you need to ask for honest feedback. If you ask someone for feedback and they're like, everything's great, you're doing awesome, tell them thank you, and then say, I appreciate the positive feedback, but what are some real points of opportunity that I can improve? Where are some things that I really need to do better? I think that's really, really important, because you don't only want to hear about all the positive things that you're doing, you also want to hear what are your opportunities. So the last section I'll talk about from a how do you know what to focus on is your personal interests, right? So what do I mean by that? So your personal interests could include a passion project, something that you really enjoy doing outside of work. Could be something with your kids, could be something with your religious institution, could be a hobby, but something that you really love to do. That could end up being what you focus on your personal development on. It could all tie together. Could be learning from school. So if you're in school and you took a class that really resonates with you, that could be something that you end up wanting to focus your personal development on. It's something that you learned in school, a topic in school from a researcher, from a professor, or something like that. And then I think the last one I'll highlight here would be philanthropic efforts. So a ton of people participate in volunteer opportunities or philanthropies in their towns, their communities, their cities, their countries, and a lot of people end up getting a lot of really positive energy from those philanthropic efforts. So one thing that you could do is something you might want to work on or develop more is because of something you're doing from a philanthropy perspective. So I will highlight that one as the third one when I talk about personal interests. So these are ways for you to figure out what to focus on. And what I would encourage you to do is write it down, right? So if you get feedback from others, write it down and then figure out, well, what can I work on based off of this feedback from others? If you get feedback from an assessment, you want to document it. If you want to document your personal interest to figure out what you want to focus on, write it all down. Try to prioritize it, make it into a list, because you can't focus on everything at once. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So again, try to really prioritize your list of what you want to focus on, and maybe you do this month, this next month, and then you focus on other things in the upcoming months and years to come. All right, so I talked about now where do you find resources for personal development? Because another thing people always ask about. So it kind of depends what resources you have access to. I'm going to talk about resources at work, resources at school, and resources on the internet. So first one, resources at work. So if you're at work and you want to find personal development opportunities, the first person I would talk to is your manager. Your personal development should be a partnership between you and your manager. It is not all on you. It is not all on your manager. It has to be a partnership in order for you to actually succeed and to basically get the most out of work from a personal development perspective, because your manager has to be supporting you on this personal development that you want to do in order to actually make it happen at work. So manager is always the first person to talk to. After that, it's your HR contact. So I always joke, I'm in HR. We are here to help you. do not be afraid of us in HR. It could be your HR business partner. In some organizations, they call it an HR generalist. Whoever your HR contact is, if you're a large corporation, a small corporation, they're another great resource for personal development resources at work, because they can usually put you in touch with the right organization that's responsible for that, depending on the size of your organization. If you're a large organization, they might actually have an entire learning organization where you can find training. So that's another option. If you're at a larger organization, there might be a learning organization. They might have an actual, what we call a learning management system, with all different courses that you can dive into and get training from a personal development perspective. The other thing is, many organizations, whether they are small, medium, or large, will pay for professional training. So that could be like what I'm doing. I'm going to a communications training the next 2 days. That could be a technical training. If you are, if you're in software development and you want to go get certified in some new software language or some new certificate, they might pay for you to get professional training with that organization. So that's absolutely another great opportunity for personal development. And then the last one I'll put from a work perspective is conferences. Sometimes your organization, depending on the size, will pay for you to go to a conference where you can learn an immense amount. You can network with others. You can connect with people. A great place to find resources is also at conferences. If you're in school, so resources school, say you're in college or university. Again, professors are a great resource. They see so many students. They are usually an expert in whatever field of study that you are taking their class in. So they're a great resource. Your library, most colleges and universities have pretty amazing libraries with a lot of different resources. Your career center is another really good one. So I'm making this up. If you need personal development and you need help with interviewing skills, go to your career center. They will do mock interviews with you for free. So that's a great resource. And then the last one, if you have a college or university that is a research based college or university, many of them will actually have research departments and research opportunities that you could take a part of. So that's another resource at your school that you may want to look into. So the last one I'll highlight today is resources on the internet. There is an amazing amount of resources on the internet. Many of them are free. There's LinkedIn Learning. So we're on LinkedIn now. They have a great learning platform called LinkedIn Learning. It was lynda.com. They bought it a few years ago. There's an amazing amount of courses there, videos that you can take to get upskilled on a variety of things from a professional development perspective. It could be how to use Microsoft PowerPoint better. It could be how to be a better negotiator. There's literally thousands and thousands of courses that you can check out. Great resources with LinkedIn Learning. Some other MOOCs, which are massive, like open learning centers. Coursera, edX, Udemy are great other resources where you can find professional development resources. And the other one I'll throw in here, which I think is probably a little bit more recent for a lot of people, is TED Talks. TED Talks are a fantastic place for you to learn an amazing amount of things from really extremely intelligent and experts in their field on different topics. So again, you have resources at work you can leverage, resources at school, and resources on the internet. Hopefully this helped you. Again, I thought it would be kind of fun, since I'm going to a personal development training tomorrow, that I would talk about it today, tonight on my LinkedIn Live show. If you have any questions about personal development, if you're watching this recording and you want to reach out to me, you have any questions, feel free to contact me. You can just connect me right on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website. It's fullpotentialmovement.com is where you can find all this content. And I hope to see you here next Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, for another career discussion. It's going to be fantastic. And thank you for listening. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon. If you'd like to learn more about our movement, please visit our website, fullpotentialmovement.com. You can also find us on social media. We have an Instagram, Facebook, and a YouTube. Thank you again, and we hope you come back to hear another episode.